The relationship between a lead pastor and the worship leader. Do they connect? Do they talk? Do they plan the service between the music and the message? A great local pastor and his worship leader, Gary Pilcher, Nathan Thomas, in the house today from Berean, right here, live on The View from a Pew.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 244-0077. That's 244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
Hey, welcome. 3 minutes after the hour. We appreciate you being here today, live on The View from a Pew. Salem Radio Network News updates the news. And then it's you and me. Yep, just the two of us. That's a song, I think. Every afternoon from 2 to 3, we sure appreciate you being here. Here's what View from the Pew is. Imagine you're in church on Sunday or Saturday, whenever you go, and the pastor uses a word you don't understand. And rather than writing a note in your book or on a bank deposit slip in your purse and hoping that you can Google it later, you just stand up and hold up your hand. And the preacher, who doesn't think it's unusual at all, says, yes, Mac, what would you like to ask? And then you get to ask the preacher in the middle of the whole deal questions that you normally aren't given an opportunity to do. This is church from the pew side, not the pulpit side. And we're very fortunate on this program to have some of the greatest local and national pastors on, mainly local. I guess we don't have a lot of national pastors on, Bob. They'd come on if it was probably just you, but they don't want to come on with me. They think I'm going to ask them the tough questions.
Yeah.
Like, is there really predestination and how many points on a tulip and, all that stuff.
Right.
And you wouldn't ask him that, would you?
No.
Well, you feel free.
I would not.
Anytime you get a chance to bring Robbie on, Zacharias, and I'll stay home. Me and Frank will stay home, and you can ask him the easy questions.
Okay. I'd be happy to do that.
Love to have you. Bob Montserrat, my longtime co-host. He's the cat in the hat watching the chat. What's the chat, you ask? I feel like Dr. Doolittle. It is, if you go to webcast1live.com, webcastonelive.com, there is an opportunity to chat. And it's just another way that we can hear your voice in this program. You don't have to identify yourself. You don't have to register. We don't keep your email. We don't send you anything. We don't do any of that stuff here. We probably should. We'd probably be better stewards of our program if we would collect some of that listener information. I just don't think you like that. I don't think you trust it. I think that you think every time you turn around, you hand somebody your credit card or your driver's license or you call somebody, that somebody's retaining your information and you're going to get all kinds of junk mail and everything else. So I don't do that. We don't do any of that. So feel safe here. But if you've got something you want to add and you don't want to do it via the phone at 515-244-0077, and you don't want to go on Facebook with Mac J. Michael McCoy, and you just want to say something and be somewhat anonymous, feel free to do that. You can do that at webcast1live.com, and we appreciate you stopping by. All right, today, one of the do I have pastors on from churches I wouldn't go to? Probably not. I was about to give you a compliment because you know how I feel about your church, Gary.
Sure.
But the truth of the matter is, I don't think I've ever... Oh, wait, I did once, and I won't mention who it is. But for the most part, I try not to have pastors on of a church that I wouldn't go to, because most of the churches, most of the pastors I've had on, I think 100% of them, I've been to their church.
Really?
Yeah. I try to go intelligently talk about what it is I saw there that day.
Sure.
And so... and the reason I came to Berean that day was a friend of mine, Doug Mitchell, who had visited your church one day. He said you were okay. But he said, wait till you hear this music guy.
The music guy, that's what carries the mail.
Wait till you hear this music guy.
Absolutely.
And we came out one day and sat there, and man, did he underpromise and overdeliver. Love your worship guy. Nathan, you've been on the show before. You've been to testify.
Yeah.
His music. Some are just instrumental. Some are singing.
Yep.
You have one that's like a continuous praise song. Mm-hmm. And when my good friend Dr. Ron Groders was passing from us in the past, the last 24, 48 hours of his life, everybody was happy. Everybody was surrounded by his great-grandchildren, his grandchildren. Everybody knew where Ron was going. It was sad. but everybody knew where he was going, and it was quiet a lot. And so I went out and I went out to Target and bought a little CD player. It filled the room with the Holy Spirit, rather than it being something that we felt within each other. And I got to think about how I'm going to say this. I didn't prepare this, but it surrounded us. It consumed us. It came to us through your music, and it was just wonderful.
Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. And I have it in my car, and I put it in every chance I get. Of course, now that this great radio station you can hear anywhere across central Iowa, I listen to it a lot less in the car.
Well, make sure you don't fall asleep when you're listening to it while you're driving.
I don't think I will. I don't think that. Ryan is producing today. Now, we do have Frank is not here, but you better bet Frank will probably be on the phone. Now, we're not going to talk probably any thick theology here. And Frank, you've met Frank.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know we've changed his name?
No.
It used to be The Voice. Now we call him The Verse.
The Verse.
Frank is one of those guys that can give you can give you a verse out of context anytime that will somehow solve the theological. Got to have those guys, those proof texters. So do me a favor, bring that mic up just a little.
Up?
Yeah, just a little closer. So here's the conversation I want to have today, and it's your voice I want to hear, 515-244-0077. I want to talk about the relationship that either you want to have with your pastor or worship director, or that you guys have. And I'm not looking for a each other.
Mutual Admiration Society.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a Mutual Admiration Society.
I don't think you're going to find it.
And if this guy controls your paycheck, Nathan, then shame on you, Gary, for not letting him speak the truth.
I've never known him to not speak the truth.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, man.
I think that you guys have one of the best. Well, now let me think. I don't know if you have a good relationship. That's why you're here. But the product of whatever you do behind the scenes has got to be one of the services I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And I think I've been, twice now?
Sure.
2 or 3 times, I think. And then every once in a while, Gary, I don't know if you know this, but this guy leads a pack of wolves or men who go out to lunch every Thursday.
I do. I'm occasionally there.
There.
Yeah, I can't keep up, but
absolutely.
I try to show up. Yeah.
What do you call people who eat meat? Carnivores? No.
Carnivores?
Carnivores.
Absolute, yes. A pack of carnivores.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
And it's funny because I might just show up and they'd be. They don't text me.
They don't.
They don't call me and tell me where they're going to be.
Well,
hey, Matt, come on out.
We need to get you on the list then. We need to get Matt.
I think I was on the list at one time, and then I responded, and I think I was like, poof, I was like unfriended or something like that. I don't know. Best group of guys, though.
Sure.
It's a great group.
All right, so first of all, let's start with who got there first.
That's a crazy story.
It's a good story. There's a bit of a crazy story behind that. When we came to Berean was in a challenging kind of place. The worship leader was gone under difficult situations. The lead pastor, of course, was gone. The youth pastor was gone. And the Sunday night that I was introduced to the church, that I was coming to Berean, there's a whole story behind that.
That you were coming or you were interviewing?
Well, there's a whole story behind that. Normally, as a congregational form of government, a church will vote in a pastor. But in our situation, it was a little bit different because of the difficulty the church was going through. The church was brought under a category that we would call district supervision.
Okay.
So it was having oversight by the state of Iowa, our denominational leaders. So I was asked to come on a 1-year assignment as an interim pastor with the opportunity for them to vote on me at the end of that year, which is really unusual in our circles. It doesn't generally work that way. So I resigned. The church I was pastoring, I'd been there for 22 years, came on a 1-year assignment with a children and family pastor who was still there and an adult ministries pastor that was there part-time.
Could you have returned if it hadn't worked out?
No, that bridge was burned. Yeah, they elected, brought someone else in.
Okay.
So it's kind of a risk, but really when you feel like, and I know people say this kind of flippantly, I don't mean it flippantly, but when you feel like you're really following God's direction, you feel like he'll take care of the next steps.
Yeah.
So fast forward to the Sunday then that I'm there after I've been introduced to the congregation. They're not happy about what's happening because I'm being appointed. They don't have a voice in it. And I show up on that first Sunday with a new worship pastor and a new youth pastor. The three of us walk in together. And our experience together was really limited to, I'd heard him lead worship, I think, once, several years before that. He likes to joke that he tried to come to Ames and do a worship concert and that I wouldn't schedule him.
He turned me down.
I turned him down. We just wasn't a place where we could do that at that point, and then hired him. So the three of us walked in to a church.
Now, had you hired him, or Nathan, were you hired by the church and you were said work with him?
No, we were basically, not to interrupt, we were traveling full time, me and my wife in music ministry, and just was really kind of lost where we needed to be in ministry. We were trying to pursue to move to Nebraska, and that's when he had called me. I was traveling on the road full time. I had scheduled services, conferences, different things to lead worship at. And he had called me and asked if I was interested in being a music pastor at a church. And I said, I don't know if I'm interested.
And you said, this is the jerk that wouldn't take my call.
Exactly. Pretty much was what it was.
For this guy, yeah.
And so I said, he's like, well, I'd love to meet with you. I said, yeah. We were 3 hours outside of Des Moines. The only thing I knew of Des Moines at the time, because we were living in Chicago, was Bennigan's on Merle Hay. That was all I knew. And so he's like, well, I'll meet you there. So basically it was me and my 3 kids at the time and my wife, and we were just in a car for 4 hours and met with him, and he just laid it all out of what happened with the church and some of the struggles that were going on, and that he needed a music pastor right away, and asked if we would. And like I said, my parents knew him really well, but I didn't know him all that well, and he's only heard me lead worship once, and so I said, when do you need us to start? He said, I need you to start in 2 weeks. And so we were like, wow, but we just knew right then that's where God wanted us to be. And so canceled all the services that I had. We went back to Chicago and packed up all our belongings and moved to Des Moines. So
yeah, I said, I need you in 2 weeks. I need you to cancel all of the service you have scheduled, and I have no idea what you'll get paid.
Yeah, we didn't know what our salary would be, if we even had a salary. Yeah.
And then there was a youth director.
Yes.
And where did he come from?
He's my son-in-law.
Oh.
And so...
boy, you really put it on the line for your family, don't you, Pilcher? Hey, honey, bring your kid and your son along, and Nathan, come on in from Chicago.
Exactly.
I don't know. We're just going to give this thing to Jesus.
Pretty much.
It was insane. It really was insane. What we did, I would counsel people not to do.
Sure.
Yeah. And in fact, one of our staff pastors that was already there said, don't bring your son-in-law. That's going to add extra baggage to the church. I was convinced it would work. Today, he will tell you that his initial impression was wrong, and it's worked really well. But yeah, I asked them to resign and come with us. Everybody, we have 1 year to work here. Let's see if we can make it go.
And he was your youth pastor in Ames?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And it was and basically the first Sunday that we walked in was May 2nd of 2010. It was that Sunday morning. It was the first time I met our children's church pastor, our youth pastor,
right.
Some of his other kids. It was the first time I've met them. And 5 years later, we're all still working together. So
now, and our guests today you just heard the voice of Pastor Nathan Thomas. He's the worship pastor at Berean Assembly in Pleasant Hill. Great church, south side of the road, across from the old water chute. Is there a better?
Whitewater University.
Whitewater. There we go.
That's it.
Next to Mickey D's.
9 o'clock and 10:45 are services at that day, and so now seriously, he's not listening.
I'll be back.
Were you really that desperate? Wasn't working on the road. We got to get someplace. Roof over our head. Honey, I promise we'll never have to move. Was your wife threatening to leave you if you didn't get her a broom and a bed?
Well, our youngest was only 6 months old, so we had 3 kids under the age of 7 at the time traveling, and we needed to do something, but it wasn't out of desperation. Basically, how I put it is we just wanted to be in the will of God, and we were... At that moment, I felt like this is what God wanted us to do, but it wasn't a knowing. And I was in a place in my life where I just wanted to know this is what God wanted us to do. And when we first met with Pastor Gary, after we met that day, we knew this is where God wanted us.
We'll talk about that first Sunday and what it feels like to walk into the OK Corral with your guns empty.
Pretty much.
Pastor Gary Pilcher and Nathan Thomas here live from Berean on The View from a Pew, powered by webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
21 minutes after 2 o'clock, we are live here on 99.3 KTIA. We're very, very blessed to have this hour in the day, to think that at this point in my life, after 40-some years in radio, I get to serve the Lord. It's just shocking to me that he had spent all that time to prepare me. I many times thought I wanted to go into Christian radio. Little did I know that I wasn't a Christian. Would have been kind of hard. Although the folks at 940 discovered that after about 6 weeks, and I was out of there. But it was a great experience. But the fact that, we take a class at my church called Ending Well. No, Ending Well? Ending Well? I think it's Ending Well. And what a way to end, for a guy like me. But anyway, Nathan Thomas is here. He's the worship pastor at Berean, and his lead pastor is with us, Gary Pilcher, and we're kind of talking about what it's like for the relationship between a lead pastor and a worship pastor. And maybe it's no big deal. I just thought it would be a great course of conversation, and I think so far it has been. If you want to check out Berean, it's every Sunday, 9 and 10:45. Great service. If you're a music guy like I am, it just soaks into you. Nathan, you don't really, you do play songs, but you do something in between the songs that kind of brings it together.
Worship.
Is that?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Nathan was kind of looking at our green screen. Now, for those of you folks on the radio, this won't mean anything to you, but if you're watching on Webcast One, we're going to show Nathan how the green screen works. So, Ryan, you ready? First, back it up for me and give me a wide angle. And boy, that's a That's a big statement when it comes to me, a wide angle. See, there's my Hy-Vee cup. And this is us way, way back. And then can you kind of put a candle, or not a candle, a camera on Nathan so he can kind of see where he's at. So, Nathan, put your hand out in the middle, Nathan. Just so there you are. And so now it comes over there.
Nice.
All right. And then if we go the other way, then you'll see Gary and Bob. And that's just
like we're on a ride.
Yeah. And now shut the green screen off and scare the heck out of people because we live in Froggy Land. This is a 17 by 14 foot room painted green. In fact, you can even see behind me there is a door with a doorknob that is painted green. Now, swing all the way over to you, Ryan, and wave at him so they can see Ryan over there in the production booth. He's over there with, there we go, with Don DeWay, and they're waving in there in master control. And then we come back around. And green screen is nothing more than it gives us the ability to put video or individual pictures, JPEGs, over anything we have in the back. And the only thing, and Gary, you almost wore green. I forgot to tell you.
Oh, I didn't think about that. That would have been a creepy kind of effect.
Oh, yeah, we've had that before, and all you see is the head and the arms. It, kind of looks like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But, all right, put the green screen back on, and we'll be back in Studio Land and Cool Land. And we can put any picture we want back there. We could put your altar, your worship center. There's a copy of the Capitol. Do you have the Death Star? What's that? Oh, that's McCoy and Coates for president. That was a few years ago. Find the Death Star and put me in the Death Star. That'll be Nathan. There we go.
There we go.
Nathan, I'm in the Star Wars
There
Death
we
Star.
go.
Nice.
Does that make you feel better?
Yeah,
All right, at home?
That's just great.
And
get you in the Husker Stadium, though. That's where you need to be.
That's where we need to
That's
do.
where
We
you
need to
be.
find,
Yep.
work on that during the thing. Find us a picture of Memorial Stadium in Lincoln.
I just lost a whole bunch of viewers, I think.
No, that's okay. Brother, I've been in this town since 1978, and I have never faltered, never wavered for my commitment and love to Nebraska.
Nice.
In fact, I'm even known to poke the bear. Like I'll meet a Hawkeye fan, and I'll say, oh, really? Football? How many national championships have you won?
Yeah.
And they want to bring up basketball, and I call foul. Yeah. Because we don't care about basketball at Nebraska. We've never acted like we care.
Right.
That was one of our biggest struggles in getting our team together, was to have a Husker on the team.
Yeah, that was it.
But a little bit of a challenge.
But you knew that he'd stay faithful. If you could stay faithful to the Huskers,
That's
the Lord's
true.
not a big deal, right?
That's true.
We haven't had the best few seasons.
If you
the
can be a
last couple
Husker
years.
fan, everything else is good.
That's
yeah,
right.
That's good. I'm
Being
going
a
to remember
Husker
that
fan is
too.
almost like being a Twins fan nowadays. It's really hard to stay
tough.
strapped in.
That's a challenge.
All right, so let's go back. What'd you say, 5.5 years?
It is 5 years this last May.
Last May.
May
All
2nd.
right.
Yep.
And so you guys are getting ready to walk into your first Sunday service. Mm-hmm. Have you been in the doors of Berean at all that last 2 weeks? I mean, had you established an office? Had you established territory?
I had. I'd been there for a month. During that last month, I, in essence, was pastoring both churches, the church in Ames and the church in Pleasant Hill. So I was having board meetings and staff meetings and working with people there to get ready. But the team hadn't. I don't think you'd even been in the...
I was in the building the first time on the Saturday before.
The Saturday before.
First time out, and that's where we had our first rehearsal.
Were you preaching at both services or both?
No, I wasn't preaching, but I was doing the administration at Life Point while I was at Berean.
All right.
For about a month.
All right. And I want to start with that. What's that like? I mean, I remember when I bought a radio station in a small town, and walking into that small town, if I could do it over again, I would have done it so different because I realized the shock that these people were all under. I knew what I wanted to do, and they were all going to be probably safe. They had no idea what I was going to do, and they all feared for their job.
Sure. The advantage I had from that first Sunday the rest of the team didn't have is about 2 weeks before on a Sunday night, I had an opportunity to meet with the congregation.
Oh.
And our district superintendent was making the introductions, and it was a really interesting night because tension was thick enough. Anyone that was there would tell you the tension that night was thick enough you could cut it with a knife.
Because they felt like you were being pushed on
I was being
them.
pushed on them. They didn't like what was happening. And the pastor who had been before me had been there 27 years. The next pastor had been there about 13 months, I think it was, and it had really kind of imploded. And so you had people that were supportive of him and people that weren't, and there were people coming and going so fast, I didn't know if they were coming in or on their way out. I mean, it was that kind of tension. So that Sunday night, I'm introduced, and I walk to the platform.
And this isn't a service.
It was a service,
Okay.
but it was designed to introduce me 2 weeks before I'd actually be there.
Okay, and are you going to preach that night, or are you just going to talk?
A little of both.
Okay.
Kind of give a devotional and then just share with them my vision of ministry,
Okay.
where I felt like things needed to go. But that's hard to do with a crowd that's already feeling a bit hostile.
Yeah.
And I had this, you know how you prep ahead of time. I had this great opening. I was going to just kind of lay it out there. And it was clear that wasn't going to work. So the superintendent turned it over to me. I'm walking to the podium, and I just said, Lord, everything I prepared is toasted. You need to give me I need something. Give me something to say. The only thing I could think of to say, as I walked to the podium, I looked out at the congregation and said, well, this is awkward. And they laughed and applauded because it just identified this is awkward for all of us.
They could relate to that.
Yeah, it was a connecting point. So
I thought maybe you'd open up with a joke or something. That was probably in the original plan.
I don't even remember what was in the original plan. That one went into the deep file a long time ago.
Yeah. How do you reckon that in your relationship with God? Because you were certainly in prayer with that opening meeting and what you were going to say and what you were going to share. You I would assume you felt it was right going up to it.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Same way that I approach preaching, really. I feel like two things need to happen. I don't believe that preaching is a lecture. I believe it's as much a worship experience as music is.
Okay.
That what we want to do at Berean is we want you to experience God in worship via music, and we want you to experience God in worship via the Word. And so for us, in our faith tradition, the Pentecostal background, is that I want to prepare and do everything I know to do, and then I want to be sensitive to whatever the Spirit of God wants to do at the time. And could he have told me ahead of time, I want you to walk up and say, this is awkward? I wouldn't have heard that.
Okay.
I wouldn't have understood that. I wouldn't have written that down. I'd have thought, that doesn't make sense to me. But I think if you're listening to his promptings, at that moment, I went to the podium with confidence because I was prepared, but also went to the podium with submission to God's Spirit that whatever you want to do, I'm okay with. And on my way there, I realized that my preparation was for me to feel ready, not necessarily for what I was going to deliver.
And you're feeling that all in 10 seconds.
Or less, yeah.
Hey, Nathan, look at that picture. There you
Oh.
How about that? Okay.
Welcome home.
Gary Pilcher is my guest from Berean Assembly in Pleasant Hill, 9 a.m. and 10:45. And his worship pastor, Nathan Thomas, is here as we're talking about how this church came together a little over 5 years ago and how it's stayed together. Now, if a married couple says to me, we never fight, my first thought is, well, then you're not really married.
Yeah, my first thought is you're a liar.
Yeah.
Or you're married to a bully, one or the other.
All right. So when a pastor says to you, oh, yeah, I prepare everything and it just goes exactly the way I planned it, what do you think?
I think he's playing games. I thought several other things. What I can say is I think he's
Playing
playing
games. Okay.
He's not being honest. He's not being authentic because it never
the Spirit
goes.
moves
Yeah.
you.
There are times, but that also can be an excuse. I don't believe in lack of preparation.
No, I know.
And I've been in those services where the guy behind the podium believed the scripture that says, open your mouth wide and God will fill it. And it wasn't God that filled his mouth. It was just whatever came to his head.
Came.
Yeah, I think there's a balance.
For years, I've done this job for years and years, and I've always been asked, well, can I have a list of the questions? Can you give me a list of the questions I'm going to ask? And my answer always is, I don't have any questions.
Sure.
My next question, Nathan, is based on your last answer. And that's the most I can prepare.
Sure.
Because if I don't let the Spirit move here in the direction we're going to go, he wants it to go, then at the end it hasn't been for him, it's been for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And church is the same way, I believe.
Yeah. Now, that scares Bob a lot. Because Bob literally will walk in here and it's 6 minutes till showtime and he'll say, what are we going to talk about? And I'll say, I don't know, Bob, what do you want to talk about?
And then I say, we'll know in 6 minutes.
Yeah, we'll know in 6 minutes.
Yeah, you don't look like you get nervous, though. You look like you are just the calm, peaceful, kind of the calming influence in the room.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, all right.
I've learned to love this man like a brother. He and I came together in the oddest way, And we're still together 6 years later, kind of in a way like you guys.
Similar, sure.
He was on another show, and that show decided to discontinue. And I didn't have a co-host for View from the Pew, and I don't work alone. I'm not a pontificator. I like conversation. And so I said, hey, do you want to come on View from the Pew? And that was 6 years ago, 5 years ago.
And I thought it was just a one-time thing.
That's how we recruit at church, too. Try this once.
Yeah. Well, you volunteered just this Sunday.
Yeah, 6 years later. Yeah.
That's right.
All right, so we know what happens with you the Saturday or the Sunday before.
Sure.
Sunday night before. Mm-hmm. And when you got done with that conversation with the parishioners, how did you feel? Better than you did an hour or 2 hours previously?
Absolutely. I felt like God did a miracle that night. And our presbyter over Central Iowa was there, as was our superintendent, who would have expressed the same, and the congregation would have expressed the same. In an impossible environment, a group of people that in their frustration was still open to what God would say. It didn't make everything smooth after that, but I think there was I think we all left with the recognition that God was in this. God was doing something.
All right. Now, you weren't there.
I was not.
First time you walk in is 5, 6, 7 days later.
About 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks later on a Saturday.
On a Saturday, we moved in on. We got in Friday night with a moving truck. It's just crazy. And then Saturday morning, there was a prayer team that was meeting at Breen at the time. They came over to help us unload because we were moving into the apartments right next to the church at the time because we didn't have a house, we didn't have nothing.
Yeah.
And so they were helping us unload. I'm sweaty and in shorts and a t-shirt. I go over to the church, meet what worship team was there.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there. I'm like, okay, who sings tenor? And there's about maybe 15 people there. And I said, who sings tenor? Who plays bass? Who plays drums?
And that's how it starts.
And our whole saying, I think, and even today we kind of joke about it, if anything happens, as long as Pastor Gary has a Bible and I have a keyboard, we're good to go.
We're coming back live with Brian.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do. What type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
22 minutes before the top of the hour here live at we can leave Memorial Stadium now. I don't need to be at Memorial Stadium, although it does feel good though, doesn't it?
It does feel so
Feels
good.
really awkward to me.
Was it? You want us to put you in Southeast Polk? Would that make you feel better? The Rams.
Oh, yeah, that would help.
You
Yeah,
are from
that would help.
Ames.
Berean Assembly is very well represented today. The lead pastor, Gary Pilcher, who has been there for a little over 5 years, and their worship pastor, Nathan Thomas, who has also been there the same amount of time. Gary finds out he's got the job, calls Nathan, who you had never heard sing.
Once. One time.
Live? Mm-hmm. All right, and you obviously were impressed.
Yeah, and part of it was I know his dad really well. And part of the story that he didn't tell.
I see. So it really doesn't have much. It's a payback for the old
my
man.
dad.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
it was, I called you and you didn't answer. And I thought it was because I didn't book you.
Oh, okay.
Didn't answer the phone. And so I called his dad and I said, how do I get a hold of Nathan? He said, well, they're leaving for Nebraska.
Yep.
But I think I can catch him before they get away. So he drove over to your house
Yep.
and then had you call me.
Yep.
And I'd asked a couple of questions, about his worship leading style from his dad and the one time we were there and if he thought they were open to a transition. So we had a really brief conversation before he and I talked on the phone.
Yeah. Now, if I recall, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but aren't your mom and dad also pastors?
They are.
Your mom's a singer.
No. My dad is a singer.
Okay.
But my mom and dad were inner city missionaries to Chicago with urban church planning.
Okay.
And
right.
they now give oversight to urban church planners of the nation, and they travel all over and give pastoral care to all those church planners. Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead, and it's, what'd you say it was, May what?
So May 2nd was our first Sunday.
All right. And so
of 2010.
So you got to play a little bit on Saturday.
Yeah, so Saturday I basically pick up a worship team just kind of last minute.
Did it gel?
No, because nobody knew me. I didn't know them, and we just kind of went in. But like I said before the break, our joke of the years have been, as long as he has a Bible and I have a keyboard, we're good to go. And so that's kind of what it was that Sunday morning, but from what I felt and everything, I felt like that Sunday morning was a great service. I'm telling you, I mean, for Pastor Gary, even just with this whole transition, amazing leader to do what he did. And
did you guys talk about what you were preaching about, Gary, or what you were playing?
I don't know.
No?
No.
So, I mean, I'm going to play 3 songs. I'm going to say a prayer. You come up. We do commute. I mean,
it's more time, I think. You have 20 minutes to do this, and then I'm going to come up and
we did have an order of service with times, an order of what would happen that morning.
Okay.
So it's basically we're going to open this way. You've got this segment to fill with worship and whatever you want to do with that. We'll take these steps, and then this, I think probably on there, we may have talked about what subject I'd be preaching on.
Yeah.
But not scripting the whole service. It mainly was times and when everything needs.
You remember the topic of your first sermon there?
I do. It was nets, boats, bottles, and rags.
That's right.
Nets, boats,
B-O-A-T-S.
Boats, nets, boats, bottles, and rags.
Yes.
I'm guessing that had to do something with the disciples and fishing.
That and, Jesus wants to break our nets, sink our boats, break our bottles, and give us a whole set of new clothes. That the old paradigms all have to change.
Ooh, good one.
And that God was going to raise up a whole new direction. What he did for the disciples in those 4 events was to say the old way of doing things is past. I have a new way that'll produce a harvest.
Do you belong to like sermons.com and you just go in and put in topics and then they download it for $9.95?
I do, and the lip sync thing is really fun.
That's
because my voice changes every week that way.
I see. One week you sound like Tony Evans, the next week you're okay.
That's right. Yeah, some of those I have to work on.
Yeah.
What do you call your style of worship leading? Is there a name for it?
I would put it more as a contemporary style of worship, but yet I mean, we do mix in a lot of the older hymns as well, but we kind of revamp them to where they meet the need of both young and old alike.
Now, if I recall, you play by ear.
I do. Yeah, I don't read music. Yeah, so I just play everything by ear. I can read chord charts, with the little letters about the music there.
Where'd that come from?
Just being being raised in interstate Chicago, I didn't have much of a outside social life. And so we'd have a lot of teams that would come in and that were music driven or something and just would pick up different things from that. And I love playing the piano. I love music. I love singing.
Do you play any other instruments?
Oh, not very well. I mean, I can play guitar. I can lead worship from a guitar, but I'm not a guitarist. I can play drums a little bit, but I'm not a drummer.
Do you consider yourself more of a pianist or more of a singer?
I would say both.
Both, okay.
Yeah, it's very awkward for me to go outside, to walk outside of the piano and just sing. It's awkward for me.
And my guess is you can't be playing the piano without singing.
Yeah, there's many times where I can play, and I love just to play, especially the instrumental CDs and stuff that I put out. I love, just worshiping, just playing, But yeah, mostly any time that I'm playing the piano, I'm mostly singing with it. Yeah. So.
And not a stitch of music in front of it.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
Yeah. It's
just
fun.
crazy. Gary Pilcher is our guest. He's lead pastor at Berean Assembly in Pleasant Hill. His worship pastor is Nathan Thomas. It's funny because I guess I always say good things about the churches I have on, but I mean it genuinely. I guess I just don't. Have I ever had a church on here that I didn't like?
Yeah, I remember you telling people not to go. I'm kidding. No, I don't think so.
Don't go to this one.
Yeah,
I just don't. I mean, I can recall one where, as a favor, we had a pastor on to somebody, and it was okay. It didn't trip me or anything. But I've always gone to every church before I have the pastor on, and I just can't recall. Haven't had a Monsignor on. I suppose I'd get tripped up if I went to a Catholic Mass. But because here's a memory I have. I came back that first time from listening to you, and I went to one of our worship leaders at Hope, my church, and I said, "Oh man, you got to hear this guy. He's just incredible. You got to hear him. No offense, we got to get him over here. This guy's just incredible." And I hit, okay, I'll check him out. And I didn't hear. And later on, a couple of weeks later, the worship director was kind enough and honest enough with me to say, that's really not our style of worship.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I realized, what do you mean I understood hymns, the powerful organ with the feet moving and the pipes. And I understood that. And I also understood contemporary.
Right.
But I didn't understand that, but there's a difference.
For me, my goal when I lead worship, I don't want to be a cheerleader. That's my. Not saying that anybody is. That's just for me. Is I don't want to try to ramp something up or try to make something happen. Sheep are led, cattle are driven. I don't want to drive people into lift their hands or to shout or whatever.
Bob, write that down. I may want to use that sometime. Sheep are led, cows are driven.
Yeah, I want to be I want to be somebody who leads people into the presence of the Lord. But for me, I've always, for myself, is when I worship, I want it to be vertical. I want it to just be me and God. And I don't know if this sounds bad, but I want people just to join me in worshiping my God. When I worship, I just want people to join me in doing that. And me doing my best to try to lead them into the presence. I just want to worship God just for who He is and what He's done in my life, and the songs that I choose for that Sunday. I just want to worship Him. And the team the same way. We always strive when we talk with them that God is our audience. Especially when we sing, there's been a lot of worship leaders or singers that are really focused on the congregation and trying to get them. We really don't do that. We just focus on God and worship and try to engage it that way.
And it feels that way. All right.
It does, yeah.
30 seconds. On a scale of 1 to 10, how'd that first Sunday go?
All things considered, to what could have happened, if I'm rating it by where we are now, I'd probably give it a 5.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But based on my expectation for the Sunday, I'd give it an 8.
You?
Agree.
5 and 8?
Yeah, I did say.
All right. When we come back, and I'm going to let them think about this because I surprise guys with questions, but I'm going to let them think about this. What would happen one Sunday if you switched roles? What would happen to that worship if you switched roles? We'll talk about that when we come back. Live here with Berean on The View from a Pew.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids? Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 10 minutes for the top of the hour. Salem Radio Network News at the top, and then the Steve Deace back live in his hometown. An afternoon drive, 3 to 5 in the afternoon, right here on 99.3, The Truth. Bob Montserrat, the cat in the hat, watching the chat. You've got a chat comment?
Yeah, this one is from Digital DR. Tell Pastor Gary and Nathan that Rick Morrison from Ames is watching and enjoying the conversations.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Rick. He's been a good friend and good help. He took care of all of our tech stuff. When a computer would crash, I'd call Rick and say, what do I need to do? His line was the same. Pastor, step slowly away from the computer. Do not touch anything.
I love it.
That's how you can help me.
I love it.
Hey, Rick, I'm glad you're out there.
That's like a buddy of mine years ago went to Nashville, and he wanted to be a backup singer. This is not a joke. He wanted to be a backup singer, and the only thing he ever heard from the producers or directors was, okay, back up just a little more. No, keep backing up.
Back up a little more.
I can still hear you. Back up. Poor guy came home. He was
back
just
up
crushed.
A little more.
All right, so what if one... All right, here's who I've got. I've got Pastor Gary Pilcher from Berean Assembly and his worship pastor, Nathan Thomas. I love these guys. Berean Assembly, it's if you are a person who visits other churches, and I hope you are, and I don't know how that makes you feel as a pastor, but nothing I like better than visiting other churches. I'm blessed that we have churches on Saturday night and Sunday night at my church, so a lot of times I can go out. Although I haven't been to your guys' place in a while. You're a long ways from Clive.
Yeah, a little bit.
You really are.
A little bit.
But I really have no excuse because your service starts at 10:45, and I can probably get to you in a half hour.
Yeah.
So I got to remember that. But it's a great church, wonderful worship, wonderful message. You're a little more, what would you call it? Socially driven, politically driven? I don't want to put a label that doesn't...
Yeah, what we would believe is that our Christian faith needs to be expressed outside the walls, not just inside the walls. So our goal is that whatever we do inside the walls gets communicated outside the walls, whether that's social action in the political realm, in some fashion, it needs to be outside the walls. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
All right.
Yeah.
And one of the guys from your church, Bernie, who I love dearly, gave me the what was the Bible?
Founders Bible.
Founders Bible.
Founders Bible.
That's crazy. That's wild.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I love it, but boy, what a different perception, and you guys use that a lot.
We have promoted it a lot and
Yeah.
encouraged people to use it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what if, and I mean this seriously. In fact, maybe I'll give you, this is an idea. Maybe next time Sunday, April 1st comes around, you do this. But what if you switched?
Well, let me respond. I'll go first.
You can take it the whole thing.
I'm not a worship leader, and I think the same thing would happen that happens anytime people operate outside of their giftings. The Bible says a man's gift makes room for him, and when you operate outside your giftings, sometimes that's necessary, but it's rarely very effective. I led choir for 18 years. I've sung in a quartet. I can make it happen if I need to.
If you've sung in a quartet, then you can sing.
Yeah, but I'm not a worship leader, not musically. I don't have that same musical gifting. I can read music, I play an instrument, but it's not what God's called me to do. Now, I think Pastor Nathan, as an exhorter who exhorts during worship, would do fine.
Have you ever preached a sermon?
I have, yes, not at Berean, but I have. I was a youth pastor for a while.
Do you enjoy it?
I do. But again, that's not my main gifting. I mean, I do enjoy if it's presented to me, and I would do it. And
6 months notice, right?
Yeah.
You're going to preach on January 19th. No.
Yeah, and that's why we have who we have, Pastor Gary, for sure.
Well, I found it interesting in the last couple of years. Perry, our worship leaders, will actually come out and preach a couple times a year.
Sure.
And man, he's good.
Yeah.
Sure.
And what I like about, and you are too. You do a good job if it comes to a sermon.
Sure.
Okay.
Maybe.
Good. I'm glad you. No, I bet you do.
Sure.
But I'll tell you what I enjoyed was seeing that different side of Perry.
Sure.
And I would enjoy seeing that different side of you because it's really worship in more spoken word than it is sung word.
Right. And if there was a time given to that, I mean, on a Sunday night or something, but I tell you, even our Sunday morning services, it just so gelled. I mean, just with the worship that we have and then the message that Pastor Gary brings. I mean, it's what I love about the ending of our services. Him and I usually kind of come together at the very end on the platform and just kind of, it's good, it's anointed, just,
wrap it up.
Yeah, and it's just, and I love that. And because he's an amazing leader, amazing mentor, amazing preacher,
great,
amazing, just theologian of the Word of God, and so for me to even just remotely to try to step in his shoes on a Sunday morning would just be very intimidating for one. But
I think I hear a challenge.
Yeah, there's no challenge.
Now, when do you know what he's preaching about in the course of a week, month, or whatever?
It's usually that. There's times where he'll put together a preaching calendar where he knows kind of vaguely of the subject that he's going to be doing, but detailed, it's usually not until I know a couple days before. There's many times where I'll look at what he's going to be preaching and I choose and pray about the songs for that Sunday. But then there's times where I don't know, and it's amazing how God will merge those together where that song was just perfect and right on for what he preached that Sunday.
When does your worship team, and what I'm calling there are other instrumentalists and singers.
Yeah.
And you've got, about 12 on the podium with you?
Yeah, we rotate quite a bit. There's probably roughly about 30 people on the platform at one time, just with singers and musicians and choir. And,
when do they know what the songs are?
They know them that week in advance. Yeah, but we do once every 3 months, we do a massive rehearsal for several hours on a Sunday.
Once every 3 months?
Once every 3 months. And then we do...
And that's not the only one.
We used to have church choir every week.
Sure. And then every Sunday, we go in for a sound check and go over that lineup for that Sunday.
Okay.
And so they know, and we use websites and programs that people can get, listen to songs, learn them, and stuff like that. But
greatest place you could ever preach? A bucket list. This is a bucket list. You get to preach one time. Where?
One time where? I know this is going to sound trite, but my favorite place to preach is the pulpit I'm called to.
Okay.
So I have to say that. But then beyond that, I'd love to preach at our National General Council someday.
Yeah, that'd probably,
How about you?
Probably the same, General Council, to do worship for our General Council. But again, it almost sounds fleshly. I mean, I love to worship wherever I am called to worship, but if I had, I'd love to.
Well, I know, I'm assuming the parishioners that you have are the members of your church, your flock. They tell you this. They love you. You guys do a great job. I hope it also means something from a guy like me who goes around a lot of different places. You really got something special.
Thank you.
You really got to love the way you preach. It's from the heart. I can't get enough of your. I mean, if you were in West Des Moines, dude, I'd be there every Sunday at some point.
Sure.
And that's a bad excuse, but I'm sorry, it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Today, Pastor Gary Pilcher from Berean Assembly Ministry at services at 9 a.m. and 10:45. Worship Pastor Nathan Thomas. Same time. Just go there sometime, please, and then Facebook me and tell me. Tell me I did not overpromise. I bet you I underpromised and I overdelivered. You're going to love these guys. All right, until I see you again tomorrow, do me a favor. Tonight, would you please, on your knees, in the shower, wherever you and God connect, forgive somebody that you just can't forgive? But they're living rent-free in your head, dude. You got to forgive them. And remember, as Jesus taught us, as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. I'll see you in church.